the next president of the United States, Joe Biden.
It's June 9th, 1987, and then Senator Joseph R. Biden Jr. has just entered the presidential race. Look familiar? The 2020 race is Biden's third attempt at the Oval Office. He first ran for president 32 years ago. For those who may have forgotten or weren't around in '87, here's what happened. Biden started off as a strong contender.
Senator Joseph R. Biden Jr. of Delaware.
But his campaign was marred by some early blunders, like this one.
What law school did you attend, and where did you place in that class? And the other question is...
I think I probably have a much higher IQ than you do, I suspect.
Senator Joseph Biden may have more explaining to do.
The new questions stem from taped remarks of Biden during an April campaign appearance in New Hampshire.
I went to law school on a full academic scholarship, the only one in my class to have a full academic scholarship. Went back to law school and in fact ended up in the top half of my class. I was the outstanding student in the political science department at the end of my year. I graduated with 3 degrees from undergraduate school and 165 credits, only needed 123 credits.
Biden now concedes he did not graduate in the top half of his law school class, that he does not have 3 degrees from college, and that he was not named outstanding political science student in college.
Unlike the African-American community, with notable exceptions, the Latino community is an incredibly diverse community. If you have a problem figuring out whether you're for me or Trump, and you ain't black. Poor kids are just as bright and just as talented as white kids.
My Democratic colleagues don't like me saying this. I think the two-party system is good for the South and good for the Negro, good for the black. And other than the fact that they still call me boy, I think they've changed their mind.
They're gonna put you all back in chains.
The first sort of mainstream African-American who was articulate and bright and clean and nice-looking guy. I mean, that's a storybook, man.
It was hurtful to hear you talk about the reputation of 2 United States senators who built their reputation and career on the segregation of race in this country.
The most racist thing a person could tell me is that I'm supposed to choose something based on my race.
You ain't black.
Newsweek says Biden actually went to school on a half scholarship, ended up near the bottom of his class, and won only 1 degree, not 3.
Joe Biden ranked 76th in a class of 85 at the University of Syracuse Law School. I mean, this guy comes off this whole thing as a flyweight.
Now Biden says Newsweek is right. His memory had failed him.
And I'd be delighted to sit down and compare my IQ to yours if you'd like, Frank.
And he exaggerated his academic record in law school.
Went back to law school and in fact ended up in the top half of my class.
And then there were moments like this, repeated later during the campaign.
When I marched in the civil rights movement, I marched with tens of thousands of others to change attitudes.
But he never actually marched in the civil rights movement at all. Ultimately, it was accusations of plagiarism in his speeches.
I did not know that was a Robert Kennedy quote. My mistake.
That forced him to drop out of the race.
I made some mistakes.
Presidential candidate Joseph Biden today faces a controversy. 3 weeks ago at a debate at the Iowa State Fair, he used phrases identical to those delivered by British Labour Party leader Neil Kinnock.
Biden seemed to be claiming Kinnock's vision and life as his own.
Why is it that my wife, who's sitting out there in the audience, is the first in her family to ever go to college?
Why is Gladys the first woman in her family in 1,000 generations to be able to get to university?
My ancestors who worked in the coal mines in northeast Pennsylvania don't come up after 12 hours and play football.
8 hours underground and then come up and play football.
It's because they didn't have a platform upon which to stand.
There was no platform upon which they could stand.
The notion that every thought or notion or idea you'd have to go back and find and attribute to someone, I think is, quite frankly, ludicrous.
The problem here is that Senator Biden told his audience he'd just been thinking about these things, and he failed to give any credit at all to his famous British speechwriter.
You know, I was thinking on the way over here. Now that's a little too much, because as you point out, what's behind the words? What's there? And a lot of people, the rap on Biden has always been that it's just a surface.
I should have said, to paraphrase Neil Kinnock, it's the only time I didn't, and all the times I've ever used it.
But CBS News found a tape of a second instance.
It reappeared in the New York Times with a new charge, that Biden had appropriated a famous litany from the late Robert Kennedy about what the gross national product cannot measure.
It cannot measure the health of our children,
the health of our children,
the quality of our education,
the quality of their education,
the joy of their play,
or the joy of their play.
Biden gave Kennedy no credit. He has also quoted or paraphrased John Kennedy, Hubert Humphrey, and British Labour Party leader Neil Kinnock, all without credit.
Joseph Biden admitted today that he committed plagiarism when he was in law school. He said it was a mistake, but that it was unintentional.
He quoted 5 pages of someone else's work without proper citation.
I've done some dumb things, and I'll do dumb things again.
He was given an F.
So, ladies and gentlemen, I've been dumb.
To the political community in Washington, it all seems of a piece. Plagiarism at law school, plagiarism on the stump.
The great communicator. Strike that. The great imitator.
About how perspectives change over time. Bobby Rush, member of Congress, said the other day, "I'm ashamed that I voted for the '94 crime bill." You ashamed of that bill?
Not at all. And in fact, I drafted the bill, as you remember.
I know that.
Unless we do something about that cadre of young people, tens of thousands of them, born out of wedlock, without parents, without supervision, without any structure, without any conscience developing, because they literally, I yield myself 3 more minutes, because they literally have not been socialized. They literally have not had an opportunity. We should focus on them now, not out of a liberal instinct for love, brother, and humanity, although I think that's a good instinct, but for simple pragmatic reasons. If we don't, they will, or a portion of them will, become the predators 15 years from now. And Madam President, we have predators on our streets that society has, in fact, in part because of its neglect, created. Again, it does not mean because we created them that we somehow forgive them or do not take them out of society to protect my family and yours from them. They are beyond the pale, many of those people. Beyond the pale. And it's a sad commentary on society. We have no choice but to take them out of society.
After that, Biden stayed in the Senate, ran again in the 2008 race, became the vice presidential nominee, and then the vice president. Laid low for a little while, and now we're here.
If I'm going to be able to beat Donald Trump in 2020, it's going to happen here.
And certain things, including a handful of Biden's vulnerabilities, haven't changed. He's still leaning into some of the core messages he highlighted during his first presidential run, often emphasizing his profile over policy, promising to put the country on the right path after what he sees as the ills of Republican administrations. Here he is in 1987.
I tell you today that America is a nation at risk.
In 2007.
This president's going to be judged and his administration judged very harshly by history.
And in 2019.
We're in the battle for the soul of this nation.
But Biden has struggled to project himself as a man in step with the times, and parts of his political history continue to haunt him, like his role in the questioning of Anita Hill in 1991.
It is appropriate to ask Professor Hill anything any member wishes to ask her to plumb the depths of her credibility.
And more recently, it was his relationship with personal space.
The boundaries of protecting personal space have been reset, and I get it.
And confidence. I've got a lot of thanks to give out here.
Throughout his more than 4-decade-long career in politics, Biden has become known for his freewheeling charm and authenticity.
I've been referred to as middle-class Joe. It's not always meant as a compliment.
But his candor has also gotten him into some trouble.
I've done some dumb things, and I'll do dumb things again.
As the Democratic frontrunner, Biden will be under a microscope. The question is whether he can harness the folksy appeal he's become known for without repeating the mistakes of the past.
Mr. Brad Blakeman. Brad, it's good to see you.
Good to see you.
All right. They really think this guy's ready for prime time. It looks like he's faring well tonight, and he may just beat Bernie.
You know, he's old, he's creepy, and now he's mean. We've seen a consistency of being mean to people who he's supposed to be courting for votes. I've never seen it in a candidate who's been so brazen. And I think it becomes where he thinks he's inevitable now. And you're seeing the real Joe Biden is what you're seeing. It's like the guy who, you hit your ball over to his lawn and you never get your ball back. I mean, he's a
it's
mean
interesting.
guy.
I've heard that anecdotally. I have nothing to back it up other than just what I've heard, and then of course the tape, right? But several people have said that, including Democrats, that there's a side to him, and I guess that's what's coming out. Look, we live in a different age, right? And there's cell phones everywhere, and people can see you, maybe not always at your best. Although I would think when you're out there campaigning, aren't you supposed to be your best?
Especially when you're in front of people who are supposed to be supporters, or you're trying to win over. And by the way, the question of the auto worker was legitimate. He was asking a legitimate question. He wasn't attacking the vice president, but the vice president can't even answer a question. And we've seen it now in several venues. This is
debates included.
Debates included. As soon as you challenge him, he gets defensive and then he gets mean.
Well, he's also a little weird. I think we have a clip that I'm going to show you because I want your reaction. And this is Joe Biden's sort of creepiness on display.
What my dad used to say, your granddaughters have one important job. Take care.
I got hairy legs that turn blonde in the sun, and the kids used to come up and reach in the pool and rub my leg down so it was straight, and then watch the hair come back up again.
Now look, I don't believe in taking people out of context. That's happened to me before, quite recently actually, and it's not fair, it's not right, but nonetheless, that's still odd.
It is odd in context.
Yes.
and you didn't do anything. You didn't edit anything out.
Right.
What you saw is what you got.
Wow.
And Joe Biden is a creepy dude, and he's been that way for some time. But you never realize it until you start focusing in on it, and then you see a repetitive pattern of behavior.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's creepy.
And so, this guy's going to be the Democratic nominee, it looks like, increasingly. Do you think he's going to be able to hold his own there on a debate stage with President Trump?
No, I think the president's going to wipe the floor with him. And the most relevant reason I say that is because President Trump has a record of accomplishment. Joe has always been living vicariously through other people, whether it's taking their speeches or taking credit for something that somebody else has done. Mm-hmm. Donald Trump, if anything, has underpromised and overdelivered. He has ticked down.
Mm-hmm. But what
his
about
promises.
coronavirus?
Coronavirus is not of his doing. And the reaction to the coronavirus by this administration has been exemplary.
I got in a lot of trouble for saying that.
I mean, look,
people don't want to hear it, but I agree with you. He didn't create it.
No.
It came from China. He did shut down travel with China, which was an important first step. I think he could go even further. I mean, you look at what Israel's done right now, and they say no one's coming in that's foreign that hasn't had a 2-week quarantine. I get it.
Right. And you know what? The governor of California is now applauding the president for outreach to California. Mm-hmm. The president has said whatever you need on a state and local level, mm-hmm. you have from the federal government.
But right now the left is getting very, very angry at any kind of talk of somehow this is not his problem, right? In other words, he's been tagged with this thing. They almost seem, in some ways, Brad, it's disturbing, a little bit gleeful. I mean, I talked about Rosie O'Donnell and how she was cheering on the market down 1,800. And that kind of attitude right now, at a time when our economy should be thriving and our market, we want to do well because it's important for people's 401ks, and to finger point and to try and say that this is his problem. And what do you think that says about the state of the country right now?
It's appalling for Democrats to be rooting against America. And I will say our economy would be in a much worse position mm-hmm. if we weren't in such a good position.
Right.
So we're going to weather this storm. We beat any adversarial impact that we've ever had, be it war, the economy, natural disasters, we always come out, and we always come out on top.
Don't bet against America.
Absolutely.
And I think that's an important thing to remember right now.
Absolutely.
Brad, good to see you. Thank you so much. Okay.
Every major crime bill that's come out of this Congress has had the name Joe Biden on that bill. We do everything but hang people for jaywalking in this bill.
Perspectives change over time. Bobby Rush, member of Congress, said the other day, "I'm ashamed that I voted for the '94 crime bill." You ashamed of that bill?
Not at all. And in fact, I drafted the bill, as you remember.
I know that.
Apologize for what? For what?